we are making risotto carbonara with seared scallops and a broccolini to go along with it. This is a delicious risotto, and it's a little take on a carbonara, not a true carbonara, but I like to add a little bacon and I like to add a little onion into my carbonara. So what we're going to do is cook the risotto down with these flavors, and then I'm going to sear off some beautiful scallops and put that right on top of our risotto. Serve that alongside some broccolini, and it's going to be delicious. So what I'm doing right now is getting my onion cut up. I'm also going to go ahead and get my bacon cut up because that goes in my risotto as well. Now, risotto is an Italian dish. It is made with arborio rice, and arborio rice is a little bit shorter rice than traditional rice. It's a little bit more starchy. It's a short grain of rice, and it adds a starchy, creamy flavor to your risotto dish as you cook it down. And you can really make it any way you'd like to make it. There's so many different kinds of ways to make risotto. But I'm going to show you how to cook a proper risotto, and I'm going to add these particular flavors to it. And as I said, you could make it any way you would like. I'm also going to cut a whole clove of garlic, of course, like I always do, to go along with this. So I'm going to get that cut up, my mise en place all ready, and then we're going to head over to the range, and we're going to get the scallops and the risotto made. Before we head over there, I want to show you our beautiful scallops. These are diver scallops. They're called U10s. Just an amazing little scallop that is great, just seared off, and I love it served on the risotto. That creaminess of the risotto and the scallop just goes together perfectly. Also, I wanted to show you our broccolini. So broccolini is an Italian vegetable. It's broccoli. It's just a different type of broccoli. Usually has longer stems, and then the tops of it are not quite as big as your traditional broccoli is. It's great just sauteed down really quickly. I'm going to do it with my veggie seasoning, and we'll talk about that when we get to the range. But I have my onions cut up. I have my bacon cut up. I'm going to go ahead and get my garlic cut, and then we're going to head over to the range and make our risotto. Okay, we're going to get started first on our risotto, and I have a pan heating up on the range. And the first thing I'm going to put in there is some butter. It's about 2 tablespoons of butter. We're going to move that around and get that melting. You can see my pan is pretty hot. So the first thing you do when you're making risotto is you want to slightly toast the rice. So the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and put my rice in here with the butter, and we're going to slightly toast it off before we start making our risotto. So risotto from start to finish should take about 20 minutes, depending on what you're putting in it. So I want to go ahead and get my rice toasted, and then we're going to start to build those flavors as we make our risotto. While the rice is toasting off, I'm going to go ahead and get my broccolini started in my other cast iron pan. I'm going to turn that on. Cast iron is really good to cook our scallops in. It's going to give us a nice crust on our scallops. So I'm going to go ahead and use that for the broccolini, and then when I get that done, I'll sear the scallops off in there. So I'm going to put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil in the pan. I'm going to put half of my garlic that we chopped up. I'm going to let that start to cook for just a minute, and then I'm going to put my broccolini in there. I'm going to keep my risotto rice moving around the arborio till I get it nice and toasty. Now, we're not looking for a really brown color. We're just looking for a little toastiness to it. I'm going to go ahead in this pan and add the rest of the garlic that I cut up and my onions. Also going to go ahead and start to add my bacon. Now, a true carbonara doesn't have bacon. It has something that is called guanciale, which is a pig's cheek, and it's a really tender part of the pig, and that's what they usually use to make a carbonara. It's not really easy to get here, So traditionally people will buy pancetta and use that. So I'm a fan of pancetta, but I like smoked bacon, and pancetta is usually not smoked. So I like to get just the regular smoked bacon and put that in the carbonara to replace the pancetta or the guanciale. You can see that it's starting to get a little bit of color to my rice now. Just a slight brown. We don't want it too dark. I'm just going to give it another second for those onions to cook. And I see that my garlic has started cooking in the other pan. So I'm going to go ahead and get the broccolini in there. Okay, it's time to start adding some of the liquid to our risotto. And the first thing we want to add to the risotto is some white wine. Stir that around and let that cook off. And then the next thing we're going to add is going to be some broth. So the way that a risotto is made is slowly cooking it in a pan, adding liquid and cooking the liquid off, and then adding it and cooking it off until the rice starts to get tender. You can see now the rice is really white. You can see the inside being really hard. That white will go away and it'll get really creamy and nice once it gets cooked. So I'm going to go ahead and add some broth. You want to kind of flood the pan just to cover the rice, and then we want to let that cook out. And when that cooks out, we're going to do the same thing. Keep adding broth, let it cook out, add broth, let it cook out until our rice gets nice and tender. In my other pan, my broccolini is ready for me to stir it around and to get our seasoning on it. So remember I told you I have a veggie seasoning. We've used it before. It looks like this. I keep it beside the range in a squirt bottle. It is half soy and the other half is a mix of balsamic vinegar and red wine. And we want to put that right on top of our veggies and let them cook down for just a few minutes. Our broccolini has cooked down for a few minutes, but I'm going to cover it with a lid and let it finish cooking and steam off just a little bit so the stems get really tender. And it's time to add some broth to our risotto. And once again, I'm going to add the broth, and then I'm going to stir and let it cook all that broth down. Almost time to add some more stock to our risotto, but in the meantime I want to get our scallops ready. And we have these beautiful scallops, but scallops tend to have a lot of moisture, a lot of water, so we want to take a towel and we want to pat them dry. We want to make sure that the side that we put down in the pan first is really dry, so it's going to get a nice sear and we can put our seasonings on that. So I'm going to go ahead and do salt and pepper and secret seasoning on the top of our scallops and get them ready for when we're going to sear them off. Our risotto is ready again for more liquid. You can see it's cooked off most of that liquid that we put in there. So we're going to add more broth. And we're going to stir until that cooks out again. So what I put in here was 2 cups of arborio rice, and it's going to take a whole container of this chicken broth. And this is the 32-ounce container. So we're also going to add a little bit of heavy cream at the very end, but you're going to use this whole thing of chicken broth. This is a good time to remind you to make sure to subscribe to my channel. We love when you subscribe. We can see people that are watching that aren't subscribed, and it really helps us when you do subscribe, because then YouTube knows that we're doing something good here and sharing great recipes. Also, if you click the notification bell, it'll let you know every time I post a new video. I do that once a week at least. And you can join us on our Patreon page if you would like different videos. We do a full cooking show on Patreon, and we have lots of different recipes over there, and they're videos that we don't show here on YouTube. So you can become a VIP member and see the special videos on our Patreon page for as little as $3 a month. It also helps to support our channel and the work that we do and keep us doing all this amazing work. So thank you so much for all your support, and please make sure you subscribe. It's almost time to add some more broth to our risotto, but our broccolini is done. So I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the pan, and we're going to put it in a bowl and get the pan ready for our scallops. We are going to have some flavor left over from the seasoning in this pan, and that'll be great for the scallops. Lots of delicious flavor. And the garlic. That'll be great with our risotto. It's time to go ahead and put some more broth into our risotto. It's really starting to smell good. I can smell that bacon cooking and the onions. And you can start to see the rice has gotten a lot bigger. The white in the center is starting to go away. So we're going to cook it down one more time. I'm going to go ahead and turn my pan on to sear off my scallops. Scallops cook really quickly. We want them to be done when our risotto is done. There's a little bit more in there. I'm going to cook this down, get the pan nice and hot, and then we're going to sear off our scallops. Our pan is nice and hot and ready to sear the scallops. So we want to take the side that we seasoned, and we want to put that side down first. So I'm going to turn them over in the pan, and once you place them in the pan, you want to let them sit and let them cook on that one side. Now cast iron is great for this because cast iron heats up really well. It holds the heat really well, and it's going to help you get a nice sear on these beautiful scallops. I like to try to figure 3 to 4 scallops per person when you're serving them. While they're in the pan, I'm going to go ahead and put some salt and pepper and a little bit of secret seasoning. Now what I want to tell you about the scallops is you don't want to overcook them. If anything, you'd rather undercook them. And you're going to see a little bit of opaque that starts to come up the sides and starts to show you that the scallops are starting to cook. When we see that coming up the edges, that lets us know that our scallops are ready to turn and sear the other side. And we really just want to sear them off. We don't want to overcook the scallops. Some people prefer to wrap scallops in bacon, and that's great too. If you wrap bacon around the edges and it cooks the bacon and the scallops at the same time, and that's amazing. But we've already got the bacon in our risotto, so I did not add that to the scallops this time. All right, I'm going to show you what those scallops look like because they're ready to turn over to the other side, and you should see a nice brown top. Look how beautiful that is. Nice color on those scallops. They're starting to cook really, really well. Keep your pan nice and hot, always on high. Beautiful. Our risotto is looking nice and creamy. Our rice is cooked all the way through. The last thing that we're going to add to the risotto is just a little bit of heavy cream. You can skip that step if you'd like, but I do recommend that you add the cheese. We're going to add a little bit of heavy cream and a little bit of Parmesan cheese. We're going to add a little bit of the heavy cream, and then the Parmesan cheese. Go ahead and stir this around, and our risotto is complete. Our scallops are also ready to come out of the pan, so I'm going to get a plate to put them on. So the way that I would plate this would be the risotto on the bottom, a little bit of the broccolini on top of the risotto, and then the scallops on top of that. So you want some color in your plate, and you want some height in your plate, and you want to show off this beautiful risotto that we made. I'm going to get the scallops and hold them in a bowl until we're ready to serve them, and then I'm going to make a plate and show you how I would plate this up to serve this to family or friends. This could be a nice fancy weekend dinner if you invite people over, but it's also pretty quick if you want to do a weeknight dinner. You could also serve the risotto with some chicken or steak on the top if you didn't want to do the scallops, and you could do it with some shrimp, and that would be lovely. So that is your risotto with the scallops and the broccolini. I like to take a nice pasta bowl like this, and we want to put the risotto right in the center. We want to add a few pieces of the broccolini. And then I would put the scallops right on the side. That is our carbonara risotto with seared scallops and broccolini. I hope you enjoyed.